What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back for another video. If it's your first time, welcome. If it's not, welcome back. Today I wanted to do a overview of the Interchiller system, being that I'm kind of the first YouTuber, maybe the first person in general, to do a Interchiller on a Supra. I want to kind of give a little overview of how I did it. This is the FI Interchiller's Interchiller Kit. They had sent me stuff for the Supra specific. We used some, we didn't use some. I've been working with them. They've been giving me help, and I've been providing advice from my end, doing it as a DIY. Someone that knows is literally zero things about AC systems. This is how it went for me. So I'm going to kind of give a slight overview of the process and what it looks like and what I did. A few things right off the bat. As you can see right here, you do delete your factory aux radiator. That's where the reservoir is going to fit. This is a G80 reservoir. However, through this process, we learned that the G80 reservoir does fit the Supra. So I'll cover a little bit of that. You will remove your factory heat exchanger for your intake manifold. You will replace that with a aftermarket AC condenser. For me, I mounted the Interchiller right here in the front. I think it's the easiest. Honestly, it was a really tight fit. I didn't even screw holes in it. I just mounted the brackets on the Interchiller itself and then pressed it in, it stuck. I did put these zip ties in it, just really as precautionary. But it was a tight fit to get that in there. All right, so going along with the AC system. All right, so I did flip this transfer around. It did point this way, as in like this spot, but now it goes this way into the dryer here, comes out, and goes all the way down there to the bottom of the AC condenser. And there's a T in there, and that T goes one to the dryer because it does go this way into the transfer. And then the other side is a straight. You can see that's this hose here. This guy comes out right into this solenoid here, which the way they wanted it mounted was completely different than on the G80. So originally I had put it here, and then I moved it here, and then through trial and error and trying to get it to mount, I had to push it all the way over. So originally this was a straight and this was a straight, but I had to mount it to this 90 degree because this AC line that you connected to here, you can see right here, that is a super specific fitting. This guy doesn't have a whole lot of wiggle room. One, there is this wire harness. Two, there is the hard line, but it's like a flexible hard line. It's almost like a AN line like this. So we go back over to the AC condenser. Then you have this guy here, this 90, where, I don't know if you can see it very well. You can kind of see the hose here. It goes like that, and then it loops around because this 90, it was be pressing up against like this shroud here. So I kind of have this big loop where it comes back out. And then I have this hole drilled here to where it comes out. And it goes under there, and then it 180s to that fitting. So originally, there's another super specific fitting right there. So originally, this guy was connected there. So then you basically go in between those two lines. All right, next, continuing on with the AC system. This is the next AC line. Goes through there, through there. That's this guy here. You can kind of see it, but right there, right at the tip of my finger, there's a super specific fitting to where that's gonna run into. That line originally was a straight, and that wasn't working at all. I had attempted to put a 90 on it. When I put the 90 on it, then it ran into the alternator belt, or the serpentine belt and the alternator, or again, it would have ran into the radiator hose and the throttle body, even worse. When doing this kit, what you're essentially doing is right there's your AC condenser. You're essentially removing your coolant from the AC condenser. So from factory, coolant flows through the heat exchanger into the AC condenser to cool the Freon, and then it comes out. So we're removing the coolant going through the AC condenser. That brings me to my next point of when I stopped putting coolant into the AC condenser, there was a lot of hoses that were just kind of all over the place. So I removed the entire factory heat exchanger system. So that brings me over here. So I have the factory heat exchanger pump. I do have the factory heat exchanger out, obviously. And then these are all the lines. And then there was this guy here too, but I utilized some of this. I'll show you guys that. Yeah, the entire factory heat exchanger system is removed from the car. So I replace it with my own setup. And the way the factory heat exchanger system worked was the pump was under the intake manifold, and it was basically suctioning down fluid from the reservoir, from the AC condenser, and the intake manifold, and then it put it all back out into the AC or into the heat exchanger, and then went back through. So removed all of that, and now I have my own now I have my own coolant setup that I designed myself. All right, so to go through this, I guess we'll start with the highest point. I did retain the factory heat exchanger reservoir, which I thought was really cool that I was able to come up with that. So right here is the drain for the factory heat exchanger reservoir, where it comes down, I have an adapter, and then it feeds into my new reservoir. So I was able to use the factory one, and it's nice because that is a high point. So I'm able to, basically burp the system, air comes out of this, and I just kind of do that. So moving along with this is the Interchiller reservoir. Don't know how big it is, honestly, but it's obviously significantly bigger than the factory setup. All right, so then we got the pump right here, and then you got the line where it goes into the interchiller. It comes out over here, and then I have it going through here is where it gets really complicated and lost in the sauce. And it goes under there. You can't see it at this point, but it's down there. That's that hose right there to where it goes all the way over here. It's this guy. And then from there, it goes into the intake manifold. That's that guy. And it comes back out. And then you can't see it already, but it dips down there. And I have it fed to this guy. So it basically just goes, whoop, and then it goes right back into the reservoir here. So that's the entire heat exchanger coolant system now. Way simplified. I don't have like 15 connections. And FI Interchillers did supply like billet inserts. So if you guys wanted to keep that stuff, you can. However, that's going to disrupt your flow, your cooling, etc. So I got rid of all that stuff. When you mount the new AC condenser, it can be a little difficult. What I had done is they supplied these brackets here, and I used one of the hardwares to go over and go into the factory plastics. And you do have to remove a little shield. There's like a little guard that goes across, kind of like down here. It looks like that. You have to remove that up here, and it'll go into the inserts there. And it'll basically, the AC condenser will sit in it. And then I just drilled the holes on the sides here. You can see maybe right there. And just insert that hardware so it's good now and it's sturdy. When it comes to the reservoir, this was a little tricky because it is a designed G80 reservoir. It's not made for the Supra. So I kind of had to do some things here. So I removed the brake duct cooler, and I had to trim a little bit off of it here. Probably trimmed off a little more than I needed to, but it fits. So I mounted it up to those bolts there. Kind of difficult. I had to drill out one of them a little bit more because they were too close together, so I had to make it a little wider basically. And then this guy I made myself. I just picked up this bracket at, I made this bracket, but I picked this piece of metal up at Home Depot for like 10 bucks. And then when you replace your radiator, it does come with this guy that basically deletes it. Coolant will just flow through it like that. Last thing I want to show in this video is the relays and kind of how I did them. So I do have a relay right there. And the way it's done is one wire. I wasn't too familiar with relays before I did this. So I'll kind of explain because I'm sure some of you guys also don't understand. It connects to 4 different things. So one wire went to the pump itself, one wire went to a ground, one wire went to the battery, and then the other wire went to ignition. And then the pump also, one wire did go to the relay, the other wire went to a ground that I did on that guy. And then for the solenoid, that relay is right there, and then I got the fuse, that's the yellow wire, and then there's the switch there. Same thing, the same wires basically do that. And then I have it wired inside the ignition wires, and the way FI Interchillers explained it is to basically tap into one of the wires in the engine bay, and I didn't really want to do that. I'd rather just adapt to a fuse, like through an add a fuse. So I did that inside. I did, shoot, I don't remember. It was like windshield washer or something, and then something else. I don't know. There's two in there that I use. The most popular two that you find on like the MKV Supra forums that everybody uses for shenanigans. But yeah, the kit was fairly simple to install. I think the hardest part I had was honestly just learning how to do it. But now that there's content out there through like what I just made to show you guys kind of what I did, I think it'll be a lot easier for some of you guys. Another part that I had difficulty with was just really mounting the reservoir. This reservoir wasn't made for the Supra. So trying to get it all lined up and everything was a little difficult. This guy just kind of sucks. I'm gonna have to cut a hole there, but whatever. I think that's about it. That's where I'm gonna end this video. So see you guys in the next one.